Hello dear students, today I have prepared this presentation video about innate resistance and adaptive resistance mechanism, and this is the first part of for this topic. Let us try to understand the innate versus adaptive immune response. I have created this in the form of some table, comparative table, which will help you to find out some of the differences among these two mechanisms. Now, what is innate resistance mechanism? It is something which is present from innate, from birth, from birth, and these are the some of the features which is present with the vertebrate animals from their birth, right? And these are some of the unique features which is which is helping the mammals to get protected against the foreign invaders. It is not specific in nature. Innate resistance mechanism is non-specific in nature. What it means? The response given to the bacteria, fungi, viruses will be of same type. Will be of same type. There is no difference in the response given against the different type of pathogens. Some of these responses are physical by nature. What it means? They are physical structures like skin and mucous membrane. Skin and mucous membrane. Both of them are trying to prevent the entry of the pathogen in your body, right? And that is they are called as barriers. They are called as barriers. Some of the other mechanisms are chemical in nature. They are chemical substances in nature. The good example of them is lysozyme. Now these are trying to kill or inhibit the invaders. The chemicals are trying to kill or inhibit the invaders. The innate resistance has another property that it do not maintain the memory. That means each time the same, even if the same pathogen is encountered, even if the same pathogen is coming in your contact, the same type of response will be given when it is a case of innate resistance mechanism. And so that it is called as non-specific resistance, or it is also referred to as natural immunity. Natural immunity, again the same thing, which is naturally present in your body starting from the birth, right? And it is also said that it is going to act as a first line of defense because it is preventing the entry of the organism in your body, and that's why we can say that it is going to act as a first line of defense against the foreign invaders. Coming to the adaptive immune response, it is not purely said to be inherited in nature. It is created by the individual itself while encountering different type of invaders during his lifespan. And the response given will not be the same against the all type of organisms, all type of invaders. The response will be highly specific. The response is highly specific, means if the organism if the human being is coming in contact with the typhoid bacilli, the response generated is something which is mediated just against the typhoid bacilli. But once the human being is coming in contact with the TB bacilli, the response created will be something quite different from the one which is generated against the typhoid. And the response generated against typhoid is not going to help you to respond against the TB bacilli. So it is specifically what you can say tailor-made responses are generated when it is a case of adaptive immune response. It is directed by highly specialized cells and chemicals. This type of response, as it is specific, requires some specific type of cells to generate it, right? So specific cells are involved in generating this response, and they are also releasing some specific chemical for that purpose. This type of memory has capability to remember. It retains the memory of primary exposure. फर्स्ट टाइम अगर टाइफॉइड बेसिलाई के साथ इंटरेक्शन हो चुका है, तो सेकंड टाइम व्हेन द सेम ऑर्गेनिज्म कमिंग इन कांटेक्ट विद द सेम और patient or same person, the response generated will be of good amount or at the heightened level, right? So the response will be amplified response will be observed. Effectiveness of the secondary tertiary response will be more on repeated exposure. And so it is called a specific defense and also referred to as acquired defense or acquired immunity, as it is acquired by the person who has exposed to the invader. It is called as acquired immunity. and it is going to act as a second line of defense. The primary line of defense is mediated by innate mechanisms, right? If the organism has failed to cross that first line of defense, the secondary line of defense has not to do any worry, do not have to work, right? But if primary response has been overcome by the pathogen, they have to now come in contact with the second line of defense, that is adaptive immune response. As such, from observing these two classifications of these innate and adaptive immune mechanisms, we can find out that there are some differences between these two mechanisms. But though there are some differences existing between these two, they have to work in coordination with each other, and they are complementary with each other in protecting the host. If we try to understand what are the major components of the innate mechanisms, this is a table nicely have been depicting the component of the innate mechanisms. They are barriers. So first of all, the barriers are something which are physical in nature, that is your epithelium or the skin and the mucous membrane. This is going to help you to block the entry of the invader. Second, the responder or the commensals or the normal flora organisms existing on the site of entry may afford you the protection by competing with the pathogen with respect to variety of resources. The chemicals like antimicrobial peptide, acute phase reactants, and cytokines are considered to be a type of chemicals giving the innate response, and they are trying to neutralize the invader. They are trying to neutralize invader. You can see the timeline. What is the time duration required for this type of activity to come into effect after exposure to the pathogen or the invader? Cells of the innate mechanisms involve dendritic cells, macrophages, granulocytes, and natural killer cells. All these together are helping in phagocytosis, the mechanism of engulfing the invader, and apoptosis, where the defected cells of the body are removed. There are certain processes which are also classified under the innate mechanism. It includes opsonization, that is helping our secondary line of defense to mediate more effective response against the invader, that is opsonization, helping the protective or the phagocytic cells to engulf the organism. The next is inflammation, and another is a cell-to-cell communication. By this way, they are trying to recruit more number of the immune cells to the site of entry of the pathogen, and they combine with the secondary line of defense and give the integrated response so that invaders can be made non-effective. Next, we have the major components of the adaptive immune response. They mainly include the specific type of cells, that is T cells, B cells, and yes, dendritic as well as macrophages are also helping in adaptive immune response. What is the role played by them? They are helping in education, that is giving the what type of response should be given, educating the type of cells, what type of response will be given to the invader. They are also involved in activation of the immune system cells. They are playing a role in tissue repair after the damage has occurred by the some of the pathogen or the foreign invader. The time required for the adaptive mechanism will vary in days to years, as we can see from the last column. The chemicals involved in second line of defense or the adaptive immune mechanisms are antibodies and cytokines. I think we know very well that antibodies are the type of proteins generated by the B cells on activation by the T cells, right? So T cell activates the B cell to produce cells which are called as plasma cells, and in turn plasma cells will generate the antibodies directed specifically against a particular invader. And these are the cytokines which are playing very important role as a signaling molecule between the T cells, B cells, and other immune system cells. All these together are giving the effector response. After getting activation, they are going to provide a potent immune response against the invader. In addition to that, we have seen in the first slide that adaptive immune system is having the capability to maintain the memory, capability to remember the primary encounter with the invader. And that memory cells can be either T cell or B cell. And so that with the help of that memory, they can give the heightened response in the future exposure to the same pathogen. As you've seen that the defense mechanisms are innate and non-specific, and acquired or specific immune mechanisms are no doubt have been considered or discussed separately. We can understand from this diagram that there are multiple levels at which they are interconnected, like opsonization, which is done, which can be best done by the activated T and B activated T cells when it is cooperated by the defensins, lysozyme and complement, which are involved in or which are the mediators of the innate response. Similarly, inflammatory response will be given by the activated cells in connection with the cells of the innate mechanisms. So there are certain interlinkages existing between the innate mechanisms and acquired mechanisms of the host defense. These are the references I have used to make this video. Thank you. This is all from Padmashri Patel today for the innate and adaptive immune response.